Butcher is basically unemployed at visualized value, as he writes. He's basically the creator of Design Fundamental. He's also the creator of Build One's Self Choice, the course which is changing the life of the people and the digital business. So welcome, Jack. How are you?
Good, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about yourself, how you started and how all this journey was all about.
Sure. So I went to school for graphic design in the UK around in 2007. So I did a 3-year design degree and got into that honestly, not really as a function of loving graphic design, but I had a internship when I was about 16 in a design studio that I decided to do that instead of working at a mechanics because I was basically trying to avoid hard labor in the moment, and turned out that, you know, I figured out, wow, people can make a living, you know, sitting in front of a computer all day sketching ideas out, and that kind of stuck with me for a little while. So I went and got a few different jobs and then decided to pursue graphic design full time. Went and did a degree and came out of university, started doing internships at different places, and I had a couple of friends that were, this was in London, and I had a couple of friends that were flying out to New York for a holiday, and they were like, look, we got a friend that works for the airline, they can get us cheap tickets if you want to come to New York for 3 months. So I was like, yeah, why not, let's do it. And ended up applying to a bunch of jobs online. So I sent my portfolio from school to about 100 jobs on a site called Craigslist. I'm not sure if you have it there, but it's like classified ads. And one person got back to me and gave me a shot, said, yeah, come and, you know, hang around the studio for a few months and see what you pick up. And, you know, sponsored me and got all the visa stuff sorted out, which was amazing. And from that point forward, I bounced around a bunch of different agency jobs. So I worked for little boutique agencies, worked for kind of big technology companies, worked for little startups, just did a little bit of everything over the course of about 8 years or so. And then decided in 2017 to start my own agency and essentially just replicate the model of the businesses that I'd worked for. So get a big corporate client, do kind of full scope creative work, do video, websites, app design, anything that they would need essentially. And that just quickly burned me out as a crazy amount of work for one person. And if you want to make that work, you have to, you know, employ a bunch of people and manage a lot of relationships and all those things. And that was just not my forte, not something that I was particularly great at on the like administration and relationship side. So became very clear that the direction I had to take was really just narrow the focus and make the creative services initially way more specific than they were before. So that's how I kind of stumbled into this idea of visualizing complex subjects. So in all of those 8 jobs or so, I'd done a little bit of pitch work. So if we would like build keynotes to sell work to clients behind the scenes, build materials internally to talk about strategy, things of that nature. All of these documents were kind of, they never really saw the light of day, but there was a decent amount of value in the function they performed. So there was nobody out there really doing that. So I thought, you know, maybe I could just focus the creative agency on doing this type of work where we visualize complex problems, help people articulate their value proposition visually. And that got us a little bit of traction, you know, filled up the consulting side of the business and had 2 or 3 clients coming back for retainer work on that side of the business. But obviously that was capped by how much time could be spent with individual clients working on individual problems. And really the idea for the education products came from that time limitation. So there's only so many people we can help. So let's store this in a product that can scale the reach of this message and this skill set. And that was the first product, which was, as you mentioned, Design Fundamentals, which takes all of those techniques, ideas, and environments that tools that you would use to create those things and help like expose people to that and teach them the philosophy behind it. And then after launching that and learning from the process of productizing, my very specific experience, build once, sell twice was the kind of layer on top of that, which is intended to help other people get on that same journey and figure out what it is about their experience that is productizable, and then how to build it and how to sell it.
So Jack, what was your Eureka moment where you decided that you want to shift from your consulting business to this business? What motivated you, or what was that moment when you decided to pursue your passion?
So one of the things I think that was a catalyst for it is, alongside the consulting business, I was putting content out on the front end. So I had a Twitter and an Instagram profile for Visualize Value, which was the name of the consulting process originally. So that wasn't a product business to begin with. And doing that creative work on the front end was how we would get consulting clients, right? So you would see people come through, find your Twitter profile and say, hey, I would love to have you help me articulate my message in a similar way. And then just continuing to put out that content all the time and getting feedback on that content, I started to notice that people were responding to it like, I would love to learn this skill, or this is, this would be super interesting in the context in which I work. So it kind of revealed itself as an opportunity organically, just through putting content out there all the time.
Jack, what is your definition of success? So I'm basically into the success related coaching and many other things, and I deal with entrepreneurship or starting the journey, and many of them are into digital things. So what is your definition of success?
So one idea that I've been thinking about is, if you can align what you would do for free with what you have for sale, then you're in great shape, right? You can make that connection between the things that you just inherently are interested in pursuing and figure out a way to package that in a way that it provides for you and your family, etc. Then that to me is freedom, success, a synonym of all of the. So what it not only gives you the content that you need to build the product, it gives you the confidence to promote the product as well. So I think skipping that step of knowing how that skill set can be applied to generate a result, if you skip that step, then you really struggle to promote the product itself, because you don't really have a frame for the result it generates for people. Does that make sense?
Many of the entrepreneurs that come to me, they're many times confused about the skills that they can pursue. So what, according to you, are some of the great skill or something that they can pursue? Like, as Jack would suggest, 5 things.
So I think it's definitely an individual thing. So there's like a couple components. One is something that you're drawn to as a result of your interests, I think is important. And it's normally a combination of things, right? The more unique the combination of things are, the scarcer it is, and the more demand there will be for it. So in my case, it's not one thing necessarily. It's all of these different experiences and kind of complementary skills that have been developed together. So graphic design, writing, figuring out how to use social and make content and all these different formats and mediums, and just understanding how to turn a single piece of content into 10, 15 pieces of content as a service you can provide someone. That's where the transition happened for us. Was we were this creative studio that did anything, and then we're the creative studio that was very focused on, we had a little company called the Trust Accelerator, which was helping people launch podcasts and producing assets out of those podcasts. We do the small video clips, write articles, help them publish it on all different platforms. So you're searching for experience in all these different like real world scenarios, then just slowly kind of chipping away at those things. And more often than not, you can look back on kind of a single project, or if you're in the creative world, and again, my advice is likely more specific in that world of, you know, creative output, but you can kind of reverse engineer a product from a single project that you've worked on. So for example, we had a client project where we helped them build a brand, launch a podcast, make content to support that podcast. And then in the old model, we would just go on to a new project and do something completely different. But what we realized is, okay, this thing that we did for these people, there's another 100 people that need this service at the very minimum. So let's like lock into this set of deliverables and this philosophy of how we work, and just go and find people that need what we're selling. And then you just refine further and further from there, and kind of engineer your time out of the process.
Okay, so that was great advice, and that was wonderful. So as you said in between that you are also into creating those content and other thing, and I have seen, and all these people who are listening to me and Jack, I must tell you, you must follow Jack for the content that he's creating. Is like magic when he writes something. So how does that come? And I always wonder that how you come out with those pitchy lines and all those things.
I think it's a little bit of a hard question to answer. Yeah, so a lot of it, I think, again, goes back to the number of situations you've been in that you can stress test an idea against, right? So I think if you, like, you know, I've been in a dozen different environments, a dozen different work scenarios, dozen different industries, worked for a lot of different clients in different spaces, you know, cars, makeup, perfume, politics, money, all of that stuff. So all of that exposure, I think, you know, this is anecdotal, I think the ability to take an idea and then say, okay, is it true if I think about that experience? Is it true if I put it against that experience? Is it true if I put it against that experience? So you're kind of stress testing the idea itself. I think so much of like great writing and great content and just connecting ideas, a lot of it is about the process of just walking around. I read a tweet this morning, said writing is 95% walking and 5% sitting down to write. And that is true in my experience. It's like you consume all of this stuff, you have all of these experiences, and then most of the process is going on in your head, and then you're using a keyboard or a pen or a pad, whatever, to just essentially record the thought. So a lot of it is just processing in the background all the time.
So you are suggesting to take all those exposure and then try to stress out those things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that helps me. Another one is if you were to look at an idea from the perspective of its worst critic, so somebody who would like try and rip an idea apart, how can you rewrite your idea to kind of prevent those attacks? So you just kind of stress test it and attack it yourself and see how many holes you can put in it. And if you can like really damage it by thinking about it from a different perspective, then more often than not, it's not a great idea, or it's not written in a way that is accurate, right? If it's making an assertion that isn't true in 9 cases out of 10 that you can think of, then more often than not, it's not going to work. I think the things that resonate with people at a very basic level is like you essentially imagine somebody on the other side of the screen nodding their head when they read something, right? So I think your ability to say, was this true for me here? Was this true for me here? Was it true for me here? You're essentially kind of emulating people in all these different positions that are going to be consuming your idea, right? And if it's true for more than, you know, more of the situations you've been in than not, then the chances of it resonating with more people is higher.
Okay, so now I would like to ask you one kind of difficult question. So what if you lost everything right now? So how would you come out of it? Say, for example, you have to start from zero. So what Jack would do in that case? Zero
what? Resources, skills, what we losing? Everything.
Like financials, like business. You don't have anything and you have to start everything again.
So the thing that I've relied on my entire career is a portfolio of work. So building projects that I can point to, whether that's a redesign of a product that already exists, right? So in the graphic design community, that's how a lot of people get their start. They'll say, hey, I'm going to redesign Facebook and I'm going to put that in my portfolio. I'm going to take that to an interview. You don't need to work at Facebook to do that. You don't need permission from anybody anywhere to do that. You just pick it up, do it, right? If you want to, I read something yesterday, if you want to work at a newsletter company, just start writing newsletters for those guys and send them to them. It's like, hey, I wrote you this, I wrote you this, I wrote you this. So my approach would be, you know, if I was starting from no skills whatsoever, everything I would prioritize would be communication. So writing, design, like speaking, anything that made me a better communicator would be what I would go heavy on up front. And then building work that I could point to as proof of my ability would be the next thing. So every single move in my career has been a result of me recording a project or making something that I could take to an interview or send to someone, be like, hey, I made this thing. Do you want me to come and work for you and make similar things for you? That's how it's worked for me. And that's, I think the design community has a unique exposure to that idea way earlier than people who work in other fields, right? Not a lot of fields encourage that or promote that or even require that. So a lot of people don't do it. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people that advocate for this, but your ability to write on the internet to get people to understand how you think and how you connect ideas and, you know, how different of a perspective you have that they could benefit from is incredibly helpful rather than walking into a job interview or pitching a would-be client with a CV. It's like, I don't really care what your CV says, like, show me what you can do. So I would just go all in proof of work.
So those who don't know, Jack call it as a permissionless apprentice, right? So he would advocate everyone, and there's a detailing of the same on his course, which is build once, sell twice, where he advocate people to go for a permissionless and apprentice, right? Where you're doing the work of someone else and showing them your ability with the same, right? And you don't require any permission. That's what Jack is talking about. I've done the course and I know how effective it is. So that was a great advice to all the young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing is, like, even if the person who you're doing it for never notices it or never sees it, there's something in it for you anyway, right? Because you're working on your skills. You just have the additional potential upside of that person seeing it, amplifying it, getting you more attention. There's really no downside to it. If you need to build the skills anyway, and obviously in order to build, you know, a marketable version of yourself, you have to skill up in some way. So why not do that and make bets where there is this huge upside if the right person sees it?
Now I want to ask you, what is your vision for next 5 years? So everyone, and this is going to be a breakthrough because no one knows what Jack is thinking for next 5 years, 10 years. So what are the ideas that you're holding right now?
So it's a great question. I think a lot of people would have a very detailed plan there. I have a little bit less definition, I would say. A lot of my goals are focused around, a lot of the optimization of my time is focused around always working on things that have a like residual upside in the future, right? So my focus is always figuring out how to say no to things that are gonna that aren't gonna compound over time. So I'm of the opinion that I'm past the phase of my career where I need to do project-based work, but I still say yes to a lot of stuff that I shouldn't be saying yes to, right? So there's a ton of work to do
that you're
on
planning.
Yeah. So there's a ton of things that are not brand building exercises. They're more skill building exercises that I'm still into, which there's a balance there. You want to obviously stay sharp and work on your skills and make sure the stuff you're doing is making the products you produce better. But in terms of like a 5-year plan, it really is about adding more leverage to the product side, building like a bigger media entity above the stuff that we currently have out, because everything is so reliant on social at the moment. It's all, hey, here's a Twitter profile or an Instagram profile. And, you know, one of the goals of this project at large is to help people, you know, think differently and get unstuck and stop being distracted and pulled into like these crazy environments of, you know, distraction and chaos. And part of that, there's some irony in doing the work we're doing on social. So building a platform that exists outside of social to help people consume those ideas in a quieter space is, I don't know if that's a 5-year plan. We've launched something last week, but we're going to keep working on that and, you know, develop more rich media stuff, get the YouTube channel up a little bit more polished, and invest some time and money in just the quality of the product, which is essentially the content, right? Our product is content. So we're going to put our focus there and make sure that keeps getting better.
So that's a great idea. So I would just like to know that, as you say, you are more focusing on saying no to many of the things and leveraging already those things that you have. But as a fan of your community member, you want to know what's the next course that Jack is coming out with.
Right. Well, there's a couple ideas. So there's a couple of ideas. One is the Permissionless Apprentice course. So giving people a lot more like tangible ideas for how to pursue a permissionless apprenticeship, and maybe some accountability as part of a group that you all go through at the same time, right? This is what I'm going to do. This is how often I'm going to do it. This is what the output I can commit to. And then you have a community holding you accountable for that. That's one piece. The other is kind of an add-on to design fundamentals, which would be more specifically talking about like how to visualize the value proposition of a business. So how to take that, build a landing page, explain what you do, you know, demonstrate and visually articulate the process you go through to deliver a result. That's like kind of an add-on to design fundamentals, which we've been getting a couple requests for people to build something like that. And that's some of the work that I'm not saying no to at the moment is helping people do that manually. So that's really the kind of flywheel for, okay, maybe there's a product idea in here. Permissionless apprenticeship is the same thing, right? Posted something on Twitter, see a lot of people interested in figuring that out for themselves. And, you know, there's only so many replies you can do. And like building a course to answer that question for a lot of people, I think is probably going to be a valuable thing to do. So both of those are on the horizon and dates to be determined.
So that's a wonderful thing, right? I think that would help many people when you talk about how to have a value proposition for business. So that can even be a career option for many people. So I think that's a great idea. And all of us would be very grateful when you come out with those things.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And you're a very loyal customer. I appreciate it for everything.
Yes, I told you I'm with you from that very first visualize value sheet, and I still write those things. It's there with me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
So finally, so what is your advice to new entrepreneurs, right? Those who are just starting and those who are just building, how they can leverage the internet, something that you always talk about, as you have many times said that if you're not using the internet, right, then you, what are you using? So, what about leveraging the internet?
Okay, so it's a great question. I think we kind of touched on it in some of the earlier questions, but it's not an all or nothing scenario. You know, like a lot of people, I think, go into, I'm an entrepreneur when I'm, 18, 19 or whatever else. And, it's like all or nothing, Hail Mary approach to building a business, right? I either build the next Facebook or I fail. And to me, that's like really not a smart way to start, especially if you don't have like some solid conviction or some very specific thing that you want to pursue. So my advice would be based on what worked for me, which would be you can learn on somebody else's dime, essentially, right? You can
I
get.
would ask you, so a personal question to you. I know in this journey from almost zero, you started visualize value, and now it is growing and scaling. So me and many of your fan like me would like to know what has kept Jack going. So what is your mantra, or what is something that always motivates you in a difficult time? Like pandemic is also there. So what is that you will suggest, or that is you are doing, that we want to know?
I think helping people, honestly. So the real sustainable thing is if you can start focused enough to know that what you do can help one person. And I know we talked about this the last time we spoke. The real like fuel that can like sit at the center of the fire is you sit with someone personally and you know that you can do something, say something, make something that helps them on a one-to-one basis. Then all you're really doing again is just like perfecting that formula, iterating on the system, using technology to make that thing happen better, faster, easier, and you know, getting feedback from that one person is as easy as developing a skill set and offering to do some work for someone for in exchange for a testimonial. Let's say you say, hey, I've got this skill set, I want to do it for you, it would normally cost this. All I ask you is if you enjoy working together, or if you're like fanatically pleased with the outcome, all I ask from you is to write a testimonial. That's all I ask. And you know, no pressure. So you develop the skill, you do the work, you get some social proof, and you just keep iterating from them. And that's the process. And when you get to a point where you have scale via an audience or a social platform, the same principle is true. It's like people are getting something from this, they're learning, they're, you know, maybe it changes their frame of the day or it helps them overcome a problem. That is enough to be like, why did I start doing this? You know, if somebody's going to get something out of this, then I have a responsibility to keep going.
So yes, so helping others, right? So your core motto is to help others, and when you are actually helping others and then also scaling, and as you always say, keep iterating on the same over a period of time, and at the same time leveraging the internet that can give you the value that you want to create.
Yeah, I mean, this is just to recap, it's like people think helping others is like this selfless act. It's the most selfish thing you could possibly do. Like, this is like, people confuse, it's like, oh yeah, but if I just help others, then what's in it for me? Totally wrong way to think about it. Like, the only way you're getting what you want is to help other people get what they want. So if you figure out a way to do that, all you're then doing is just making that process more efficient. It's very simple, but we all overcomplicate it massively, me included.
And that's where genius like you come into picture, simplifying things what is complex.
That's the goal. Yeah. And something that makes you a better practitioner of the craft is another important thing, right? If the work you're doing is making you better as a as a steward of whatever it is you're doing, then that's another reason for you to continue. Again, it's a selfish motivation. If I keep working, I keep getting better, more opportunities come my way, I can help more people, etc., etc. It's all selfishly driven. The self-preservation gene, I guess, is what drives people to produce things that help others, because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's like the cornerstone of all of this stuff.
So it was so wonderful to have you on the seat and talking about success, going to the internet, building digital products. So all my viewers here, you can follow Jack. I would have a link of the Jack's product also and the profile of the Jack also. Thank you for coming here and enriching ours with the valuable ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
It was so wonderful.
Good, man. I'm glad. It was